Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of the Liberalish podcast. We obviously took a little break due to the nation's birthday. We had to celebrate. Yes, we celebrated 4th of July. We don't care
I
how
did not
controversial
celebrate
that
the
is.
4th of July.
I celebrated, man. I celebrated. Along with my white
I had a
friend.
day off, so I took off. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Nothing wrong with it. So,
Yeah, how did you celebrate it?
you know what? Well, we're on air. I don't want to incriminate myself. So we went up to the rooftop of our new apartment. I recently moved to DC. Saw the fireworks from there. Saw the nation's Capitol building. Got very patriotic and wrapped myself up in the American flag. And
Did you go sign up for the military after?
I'm too old. I'm too old. I'm 30 and I it's just too old. It's too old and embarrassing.
You still got 5 years, to be honest.
still got-
Yeah,
Marcus,
it's
let
like
me just-
35.
If the draft,
don't fact check me on that one.
if
You can
the
fact check me
draft,
on anything else but that one.
Just saying.
if the draft started today, man, you a fit male, bro.
I am not fit. We were talking about in pre-production about
They don't
how
care.
we're
They
not
make you
fit.
fit.
So, I'm not fit. Unless you want me to handle the logistics domestically, I can do that. But
You also got a grad school excuse, man. You can just stay in grad school forever and tell me you're a student.
you know what? Craziest thing happened. I think I have bone spurs. So I'm going to use the bone spurs excuse.
Damn.
Bone Spurs will do it.
To avoid the
You want
draft.
you want a famous president have something in common.
I wonder who that is. Please enlighten me.
Yeah, I share the state resident too, man.
Oh man, so I don't know, man. I mean, if it worked for him and he became the president, it should work for me. That's my theory. So, all right. So we got a good podcast today. We are joined by producer Yaw. He's coming behind the black screen to join us today. Look, man, Trump's not in office, as we were talking about earlier or alluding to earlier. So the news is a little bit light. So we can talk about international news to start off the podcast, and then move over to some domestic news to wrap up the podcast. So before I get started, first and foremost, thoughts and prayers out to the people impacted by the Miami Beach building collapse. They just recently decided to shift the operations from a search and rescue to just a recovery mission. So again, very tragic, very scary incident. So thoughts and prayers out to the families impacted by that. Ryan, our Jamaican co-host, wanted to do a thoughts and prayers for the Haitian president and his wife. The Haitian president, if you haven't been following the news, was assassinated at his private residence in Haiti. His wife, I believe, was also shot, but was transported over to a Miami area hospital for care. I don't know her status right now. Guys, this is by far the wildest story, I think, in 2021. I don't know. This was pretty kind of crazy.
The U.S. probably decided regime change. You know.
I mean,
yeah.
the guy, President Moise, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, but I believe he was they had backed him. He was the
a
US's
lot
guy.
of but let's be real, Mark. It's like a lot of guys used to be United States favorite guy. What's the guy from El Salvador? Until they got Manuel Noriega, the guy. Yep, that was the United States guy until he wasn't the United States favorite guy anymore. And then just
in the middle of a Cold War. Yeah, but I mean, one of the questions I kind of alluded to in the pre-pod was, what's the strategic advantage to pushing out someone who was up until a few months ago, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, was the US's guy? What's the advantage to kind of strong arming him out from a US point of view? Which is why I don't think any conspiracy theories kind of fall flat.
I personally believe that the Caribbean hasn't been given enough credit for the strategic importance that it serves to the United States.
Big time.
So first of all, when the Russia wanted to break a foothold in our side of the eastern hemisphere, western hemisphere, what he did was that he started in like the small islands in the Caribbean to try to get a foothold, i.e. Cuba, what happened in Grenada, where we see a forward deployment of the Marine Corps and stuff. Like it's a very strategic location, and now it's China's strategic location. China owns the highway in Jamaica. Like they are the one that collect the tolls on Highway 2000. You know, it's a very strategic place, and the United States might feel like you're losing control. You know, so
yeah. I mean, also like if you look back on the U.S. history of Haiti, obviously like the U.S. sent Marines back in like the 1920s. They were there for almost 20 years. There's strong rumors that I think when George H.W. Bush was president, his administration had a deal with like removing their president from power.
Of course, Mr. Aristide. Yep.
So I don't fully understand, to Marcus's point, I don't fully understand like what the benefit of the U.S. interest is to removing the president. It's an excellent question. It's a fair point. I'm just kind of going off like previous U.S. history where we have more than meddled with Haitian affairs, and we do have blood on our hands for why Haiti is the way it is today. So
yeah, I can see that. I just think again, it's different. I don't know if we're on a full-on Cold War with China yet, to the point that we can say, oh, we want to start pulling leaders out just to kind of keep them from influencing, from kind of breaking our continued dominance of the hemisphere. I don't know if we're there yet. Yeah.
So what I saw, what basically the way I look at it, what happened with the Asian president, right? Mm-hmm. The guys are mercenaries from a Florida-based security company, right?
Yeah, weirdly named CCU, by the way. If anybody watched 24, that was weird.
I was gonna say that's a 24.
That was very weird.
They're from Florida. Private military contractors and government, United States government work hand in hand. They serve together to do all of that together. You're not telling me such a crazy military company operating in the United States is going to operate on foreign soil without getting some kind of secret signed off or something, without no backlash or anything like that. Come on, like there's got to be like something there. Like,
yeah,
I'm not saying that there's nothing there, but again,
the guy is an American doctor. Like, come the mastermind,
a Haitian American doctor who was talking up taking over Haiti back into as far back as 2011.
Right.
And just looking into more about the company here, CCU looks like it's run actually by a Venezuelan national, and they enlisted former Colombian fighters and soldiers. Mm-hmm. To kind of they recruited them via WhatsApp, it looks like, to kind of take part in this operation.
I'm not jacking that they did that.
The more I read about this, is just ridiculous, man.
Time out.
They recruited via WhatsApp. Disrespect your intelligence here, bro.
They were using WhatsApp. They were using WhatsApp, which is an encrypted app. To Ryan's point, it isn't. But they were using that to recruit these guys and selling them on this, freedom fighting mission. Apparently.
Can we start a conspiracy theory?
I don't believe that, bro. I don't believe that's how any of this got done, bro.
That's not far fetched, by the way. That's like not too far fetched.
To convince like 30 dudes through WhatsApp from another country.
WhatsApp was part of it. It was part of it. And again, WhatsApp is as huge as WhatsApp is in Latin America, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, this is the same medium that was used to kind of get Bolsonaro to be president. It doesn't surprise me at all. People were using an encrypted app to make this happen.
Hey, is there a possibility? So I don't know too many details about this, but I'm sure one of y'all does. I think it was during Trump's presidency, there was a group who went out to attack like a South American country, and they got caught, and like it came out that like they got sold on this crazy mission similar to what the CCU sounds like. Does anyone recall what I'm talking about? I think they were also given American weapons and gear to go do this thing.
Well, okay, not to cut you all off, but weren't there rumors that these guys had stuff or equipment that had DEA on them?
Yeah, and that's what I was referencing.
They raided the premises by saying DEA operation, bro.
And to that, there's even, I think it's now come out that I think a couple of the folks that were arrested were former DEA informants in the past that have been used by the DEA in Miami as part of it, because it's all Florida based too, apparently. But they're all kind of pull these guys out of Florida, former informants, to kind of take part in this operation.
Right. Not to be that conspiracy guy, bro. But come on. As I said in the chat, right? If it's like a thing, like if you get caught, you declare working for the federal government in a foreign land, like not in like official capacity like troops or something, they declare you persona non grata. Reasons why there's no names on the CIA wall of heroes is because you, if you die doing the mission of abroad, the country can deny you all the time. The United States have done it, and Russian spies have done it. So I feel like some of the guys probably got caught, probably secret agents, bro. Because all of these guys are magically formerly worked for the DEA and the FBI and have no connection. Come on.
Yeah, the story is that these informants reached out to the agencies that they had been informants for, trying to get them out of Haiti or extract them out of the situation, and that actually backfired on them, and they were told to
Marcus,
turn themselves in,
none of that,
and they were
bro.
fought over.
I
mean, you have your beliefs versus report people who are researching and reporting this, but go right ahead.
I saw Chris Broussard reported from trusted sources 2 years ago.
Whoa,
The
Chris
Kawhi
Broussard
Leonard
is
review.
totally different. Don't throw Chris Broussard in here.
With the
Wow, you're
Lakers.
going Chris
Chris
Broussard.
Broussard, one of the most honorable black men there is, told me
There's
that
a
his
reason that
sources
Chris Broussard lost
by
his
like
job.
2
Lost his
o'clock.
job multiple times. You don't even see Chris Broussard on TV anymore.
All right, guys.
bro. Come on, bro.
We cannot talk about this guy. I can't even name him. That's how little respect I have. I'm sorry. All right, let's talk about another country that the U.S. has also meddled with currently. Let's talk about Cuba, right? So pretty much throughout Cuba, in a lot of major cities, including Havana, there's been historical protests where people are demanding change. Now, to get a full spectrum of this, there is COVID. I know COVID doesn't exist in some parts of this country, but it does in international terms. That has really impacted the Caribbean because it's impacted tourism. That's impacted the economy of Cuba. Cuba has also been hit with COVID as well, so people have criticized their response. Life is just tough. The economy is kind of crashing in Cuba, and people have took to the streets to protest the government, demanding an end to the dictatorship and demanding some real economic changes there. The United States so far has really just kind of just said like, hey, we support the Cuban people, we support democracy, we support freedom. One thing I do want to point out is that under the Trump presidency, as you remember, Obama kind of loosened restrictions on Cuba. Trump kind of reverses restrictions. Biden has kind of like a lot of restrictions in place. So let me ask you guys this. Since Cuba is having these protests, what should the U.S. response be, if any?
Lift the
Lift the embargo.
That's what
all right. You know
Lift
what?
the embargo. Like, come on.
I think I've said it on here before. The United States need to stop trying to nation build and tell countries how to run their own countries. If it's not bothering you, or there's no genocide or over, stop it. Like it's we wasted nearly $1 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we left a mess. Like, because we had no plan. We went to Vietnam with no plan. We went to Korea without a real plan, and it hasn't worked since World War II. Leave it alone. Come home and try to work on things here domestically. And I get it. The sphere of influence is crazy. So if there's a massive conflict, like a Rwandan genocide, I say we send the troops. Shit, I'll put boots up on the ground just for that, to stop shit like that. But don't try to go in nations telling countries how to run each other. It don't work because we don't understand the dynamic of the countries. And if we see Cuban people, I haven't done a major protest like this forever. Not because, and it's partly because the government cracks down heavy and stuff like that, but it's also partly that they found a way to live within what's going on, that all the embargoes and basically what the United States has been doing is try to tow countries and tell countries how to run when we don't know how to run a country. We just saw people try to overthrow the government, and politicians can't come out and talk against it because there's a secret dictator behind them holding them hostage. Talk about that. Let's talk about how people really try to overthrow the country and we did nothing. And stop trying to interfere in international affairs that we have no ability to solve.
I'm going to say that Ryan's a China plant. He basically sounds like a propaganda arm for the Chinese government. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, I think you're definitely right. And I think, again, it's been a complete and total failure every time we try to meddle in these countries' affairs. And me it may work for U.S. interests, but it doesn't work out for those countries and those people.
Right.
And I think the embargo, it really seems to be kind of one of the issues that we're having here is that you have a shortage of food, a shortage of economic opportunity, a shortage of even just like getting vaccines out to the area. Okay, but I think the inability to kind of really respond to this crisis there is why it's something we can fix right away. All we have to do is kind of lift this embargo.
Sorry to go on a mini rant, but let's talk about it. When America sanctions Russia, all of these other countries like Cuba, North Korea, it doesn't affect the person that they think it's going to affect. It doesn't affect the person at the top because they're already well off. It affects the regular people. You're killing the regular people. So of course there's going to be an automatic hatred because that they're gonna the evil government in power is already going to tell the citizens that America is evil, but you're just helping their cause with these sanctions because you're putting sanctions there. It's affecting them. It's not. Kim Jong-un probably weighs 5'8" and we're like 500 pounds because of how good he's living. It's not affecting regular North Koreans.
I think
I was gonna say so I think North Korea is one story, but let's just say we talk about another country that we actually are currently in conflict with. So, for example, Iran. And again, this is probably a tangent, but let's say we talk about a country like Iran, where we're at odds with the government's goals. What is the best way to, I guess, bolster our own goals without?
Yeah, I have a question, right? Say you have a house, right? You plant tomatoes in your garden. Why would I? And I don't like tomatoes. Is it my right to tell you to dig up your tomatoes and throw them away? Or it's your property to do what you want? That's how I see international politics. You do these grievances, you do humanitarian stuff when it's an act, like it's the last method, it's the last thing. But you can't like try to starve out. That has never worked. You can't starve a nation and expect everything to be solved because you do that. Like that's the thing. Like I get the need to be the moral police of the world, but at what cost?
I feel like the moral police is not actually. I feel like that's just like I'm trying to think of the word. I don't think that's actually what anyone really thinks America is doing. I feel like we're looking out for our own interests, and I think and I don't want to die on this hill. I'm gonna be honest, because I don't know if it's 100% moral. But I feel like typically we are looking out for our own interests, and a lot of the things we have today we might not have if America wasn't taking the selfish approach and destabilizing nations for whatever reason.
Well,
I think there is not to cut you off, Kev, but I think there is kind of a vicious cycle here where when we enforce these embargoes and we kind of go in and invade these countries, we kind of turn them over to the forces that we would not want to empower. All right, we're like when we are
Iran.
Yeah, like Iran, like we even if like places like Afghanistan and Iraq, like we kind of like because of the way that we come in, we kind of push them over to ISIL, or we push folks over to supporting these kind of radical groups that we then have to go to war against. And I feel like when you kind of with these embargoes, you kind of invite them in to kind of take part in our system, then you can kind of see things kind of moderate a little bit. And I think that's kind of what we saw like for like a split second in Iran when we kind of had the first Iran deal, but then it fell apart, and that kind of just kind of hardened things. And it's created this situation where we're now at odds with them again, and there's all this opposition to them. And I think it's the same thing with these other countries that we have. Unfortunately, we don't have as good of ties of because we just kind of said, oh, we're gonna let you kind of just flail on your own and then get involved when we need to. And I think it's just like kind of self-defeating.
All right, so
to enforce things the way we are.
To tackle Yaw's point directly, there's two things. One, I think Saudi Arabia is a country that we don't really talk about. They don't engage in like good behavior, quote unquote, but the West just kind of ignores it, right? We just kind of let them do their own thing. Mm-hmm. The second point to Yaw's point is that let's take Russia, for example, right? We don't place an embargo on Russia. We place individual sanctions on certain politicians. So, for example, we have like sanctions on like Vladimir Putin and his deputies. We don't place sanctions on the entire country. And we do that for other countries as well. We try to impact the leaders involved as opposed to the people entirely. Cuba is just like, this is a hill I'm going to die on. Cuba kind of beat us in a way, right? We had the Bay of Pigs, they beat us there. They had the Russians like super close to the United States, the nuclear crisis. They kind of beat us there. It's just like a petty type of thing. And it's like, to Ryan's point, this pettiness is mostly impacting the people on the island. If the people on the island want this government, let them have this government. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't be the ones to say, like, this is the way you do things. This is how you're supposed to run your government. Carry on. I'm a capitalist. I'm a full for democracy, but you know, if that's how the people of Cuba wants to do it, let them run it that way. We don't say anything about Vietnam. Hell, the last president had North Korea's president in Vietnam say, if you give up your nukes, you can become the next Vietnam, and Vietnam's a communist country. So what exactly is the hill that we're dying on? What's the message that we're kind of sending here?
I think that's a very good point, Kevin, because like we're handling all these countries very differently, and I think there's a different result you see out of each way we're handling the thing. To your point, I feel like, and I'm not sure if this is what you were saying, so please clarify if I'm wrong, but I think it's really interesting how we handle Russia and Saudi Arabia and the behavior they actually exhibit like currently. It's
right.
I mean, it's like very clear, for example, from Russia, doesn't really look like they respect like our ideals in US.
Right. Like for example, I started watching this show called The Startup. It's on Netflix. It's a great show. Please go watch it. But one of the first episodes they talked about in Startup was when the Cubans came to America, they were welcomed with open arms. When the Haitians came to America, they were told to get out.
Yep.
And I feel like, well, why are we doing this, right? Well, one is a democracy that people are fleeing, and one's a socialist country. So like, what's the message that we're trying to send here, right? And I think that's kind of how we play things in international space, right? It just doesn't quite make sense. And it's just like, just get rid of the embargo. Let the people decide. If you truly believe capitalism, if you remove the embargo, then capitalism should flourish in Cuba then. If not, then that's just the way it is. We shouldn't be the ones to dictate that, you know? But that is my controversial hill. I'm out of Florida, so I'm just unleashing. All right, so some more international news. South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, hope I pronounced that correctly, has been arrested for corruption charges during his presidency. So I guess shout out to South Africa for that. And also to my sports.
Or that South Africa, also basically going through like the beginning stage of a civil war.
Why do you say that? Why do you think they're going through the beginning of the stage of the civil war?
Because there's tremendous unrest there, but it's not getting much attention in the news. I think they deployed the military recently.
Wow. Okay.
Like 2 days ago, they deployed their military to stem the unrest.
Yeah,
massive. I think this arrest of Jacob Zuma also triggered a lot of unrest as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but South Africa has kind of been under like one party rule since they transitioned to like democracy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if like the cracks are kind of like are being shown through. I think it's called the African National Congress. I want to say it's a party there. So I'm not sure if there's cracks in their, hold of power or not, and that's what's causing the unrest. But I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah, they arrested Zuma. That's the reason why it kickstarted. It started up. You're right, Marcus.
All right. So thoughts and prayers out to South Africa. Hopefully they can get this issue resolved. We don't really hear much about African news.
Oh wow, 72 people died so far in the protests
in South Africa.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay. All right. Thoughts and prayers. All right. Moving back to sports. So I don't know if you guys watched the Euro Cups. I did. Shout out to Italy. But English fans have been attacking 3 Black English players. They've been facing racist attacks over their loss in the Euro Cups. So
it's disgusting. Especially one of the kids, the last kid who missed was like 19 years old. I think the other 2 guys are like 20 and 21. I think to turn on them like that is just. I mean, it's sad too because like I remember watching it in real time and it's like, fuck, they're going to make this a racial thing, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All three black players missing. It's like, come on, there's no reason to
That's
respond like this, but it's like
that's Britain, bro. That's soccer.
it
It
is
is.
soccer.
That's football.
it is.
It is
What
soccer.
football
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it is soccer. Yeah, it was just kind of sad to see. I mean, I know what you're talking about. There was like one scene where I caught where I think the kid for the penalty shots, he caught the goalie, but he hit it so far left. Like he had to get easy wide open net, but hit it so far left. And I was like, damn, dude. But yeah, man, that's just England. I mean, when you think about it,
Too.
only like what 2% black. So that's just England.
It's Europe all over. I think the player for France, Karim Benzema, was like, he was like, if I score a goal, I'm French, but if I miss, then I'm Muslim or I'm African.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I kind of they kind of
that.
strip out that identity. Once you kind of don't perform, and it's just kind of sick that that's how they look at the sport.
Yeah, there was a player in Belgium. He's a very famous player. I don't know, I'm blanking on his name right now, but yeah, similar story, right? So when he was growing up, he was the black kid from Africa, but then like when he became like famous, he became like the Belgian kid. You know what I mean? So that's just how things are in Europe. So yeah, that's sad turn of affairs there. All right, moving on to domestic news. All right, so Eric Adams, after a chaotic primaries, was declared a winner of the Democratic primaries, and he's pretty much acting like he's a mayor-elect right now.
Why are black Caribbeans why are black older Caribbeans so conservative?
I just
why are we voting for a cop? A police captain. Like all the reforms that we need, a police captain.
That's a good question.
My man's went to like dinner right after with like the police union.
Yeah,
I read something funny about Adams too.
And they should never do this ranked choice voting.
So is that like is that really? I remember reading. I think it was Miley, who I think we endorsed, came out and said like ranked choice voting worked, but I think the actual administration of it, because I guess New York's voting commission is so out of whack.
Yes,
I think we messed it up.
No, bro,
that's exactly what it is.
So long.
Marcus is right. No, Marcus is right. So like ranked choice voting is actually what we should kind of prefer because it does give people like Maya Wilkins a chance to win the mayor election, but New York City's like board of elections is actually controlled by the state, and the state really screwed it up. And this go around, like they just didn't count the votes properly. So
it was a horrible experience.
Everything worked except for the state. And which is typical if you're from New York, like look at the MTA, for example. Everything works except when the state's involved. So that's kind of what happened. I mean, New York City needs a lot more independence. So yeah.
Shout out to the older Democrats, the Joe Biden Democrats in New York.
I don't know. I mean, I'm honestly a little bit concerned because this is my hill. I'm gonna die on this hill, but the whole talk about gun violence, right? The increase in gun violence. Yes, there is a really increase in gun violence is a problem. But part of me living in Philadelphia for 9 years, the unofficial start of the summer is hearing about how many people die when it's nice out.
And that's a fact.
All right. And it's like every year, every time in the summertime, there's a spike in gun crime, right? And it's just like we just came out of pandemic where people were inside a lot longer. They finally are outside. You're going to see a major spike in gun violence. And I'm just like, are we kind of overreacting here? Because like the only solution I'm hearing from like Biden and from Eric Adams is like, we need more cops. Cool. Crime is going to go down again. It just happens like that. It just goes up in a cycle. Crime is going to go down again. What are we going to do with these extra cops? What's going to happen with these extra cops?
Have them terrorize minority community, man.
So I don't know. That's my thing. That's my whole I'm gonna die on, man.
The almighty NYPD wins again.
NYPD is undefeated, man.
Undefeated.
NYPD is
They are.
undefeated. So Eric Adams, if you support him, congrats. If you don't, we're with you.
With the budget, with the military, but with the operating budget of a large international military, you can do whatever you want, bro.
Yeah. So like, all right, this is a tangent. My whole thing about the conversation about crime in inner cities is this, right? It's an inner city problem. It is never like, what is the state gonna do to help the city? It's always like, what is the city gonna do to help itself?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, if you go to New York, for example, like the state troopers patrol the highways, they patrol the bridges in New York City. New York City has its own highway patrol. New York City has its own bridges and tunnels police. It is a waste of taxpayers' dollars. Why can't these state troopers,
You know what they do?
patrol the hoods, patrol the areas that have high gun violence? New York State has a sheriff's department. Why can't the sheriffs also help with the patrol?
They don't do nothing,
Wait,
bro.
Kevin, do you want that?
As opposed to like tax dollars going to increasing the personnel size of the NYPD, right? My question is, have we exhausted all other options first?
But we have not.
So I think
the answer is always we have not.
I think one issue with that is like, and it's just something I can see, right? It's just like you're then bringing in people who maybe don't live into the city to handle a city problem.
Most NYPD cops live outside of the city, bro.
But that's almost like 90%. And I'm making a stat up. That's almost 90% of every city cop that they don't live in the city that they're patrolling in. They usually live in the suburbs that they're patrolling in, or they usually live in the suburbs and they just commute in to patrol
the city. Most
city.
cops live like in Long Island, Jersey, or like Staten Island, which is barely part of New York City.
Like, yeah, I mean, like you can't expect like an NYPD officer to live in Brooklyn and patrol in Brooklyn. That's crazy.
That doesn't happen, bro. That's a lot to ask for.
So if I have it right, Kev, do we want these? So we don't want the state involved in the MTA in an election, the election board, but we do want them involved in the police.
If it saves some taxpayer money, I'm cool.
I want to make sure. Let's try to understand how we want this to work.
Save some taxpayer money. It's okay.
Let me clarify my comments then, right? We already have the state in New York City. We already have the state patrolling in New York City. They're only patrolling the highways and the bridges and the tunnels. Why can't they patrol the areas of high income crimes, right? I'm not saying that we just should increase the number of state troopers. We already have the state troopers in the city. But I'm also saying that New York City also has other law enforcement agencies that they control, right? For example, they have their own sheriff's department. Can the sheriff's department be utilized to help out?
I did not know that New York had a sheriff's department until I traveled during COVID. They said the New York City sheriff. I'm like, what?
Right.
What?
It is a very random thing to look at, right? So New York City has a sheriff department. Can the sheriff department be utilized to help with the increased gun crime? There's also the New York City Corrections Department. I believe they have some law enforcement powers. Can they also, on a temporary basis, be used to help out in high crime areas? Have those options been utilized? And like the answer is usually no.
We have to throw the money at them,
always
bro.
like increase the number of cops. And like what
I remember when I think, was it before COVID, right before COVID, there was like a little spike on violence on the subway, and they hired 500 new cops to solve the problem, bro.
No. But they did that because kids were jumping the turnstile.
Yep, that's why they did it.
And
that's why they did it.
A freaking $3 train fare. Who cares? You're gonna hire like an $80,000 cop for a $3
fare. Yeah, bro. It was
insane.
They was on the train beating up kids, like 10 cops at a time beating up kids, bro.
Right.
Like I'm talking like 14-year-old kids, bro.
Right. That's another good point, right? It's like, can these other agencies be used? Like, for example, I know I criticize the state, but the state's also there with the MTA police. Can the MTA police be temporarily transitioned from the trains, like the Long Island Railroad, to these inner city areas? You know what I mean? Like, I just think like when we look at crime, we just immediately go to, we just need more cops. And I don't think we look at it as like a holistic picture. Like, what is consistently causing a spike in crime every single summer? And we never talk about that. We only go to, oh, we need more cops. And then like maybe a year down the road or 2 years down the road, there's another Eric Garner, there's another George Floyd, there's another whoever.
because you have so much untrained cops on the job. I never got trained properly in the first place.
Right. And like we're like the Biden administration, right, has been utilizing the COVID relief funds for cities to increase more cops, right? I'm not criticizing that. I understand there's only so much the federal government can do with crime, right? But my whole thought process is like, we're doing this, we're asking for cities to increase their police forces, yet we don't have any real police reform. So it's like, what was the whole point of the protest? You know what I mean?
So I guess one question I have is like, do people really care about a decrease in gun violence, or do they want to just hear that something is happening? Do you know what I mean? So it's like if I'm in the suburb, if I'm like a white male in the suburb, like, do I really care that like there's a really detailed plan to stop gun violence, or do I just want to hear, oh, we allocated funds to hire more police?
You just want to see the headline.
That's what I feel like.
Yeah, you just want to see the headline. And like, yeah, like that's it. You just want to see the headline. And like even Eric Adams was talking about like he was criticizing Democrats, which is kind of odd. He's a Democrat. He was running as a Democrat. He was criticizing Democrats, saying that like Democrats would only show up to the black areas for the election time and not when crime is increasing. Cool. So as mayor, you're falling into the same Democratic trap as like when black neighborhoods need help, you only send police, not anything else. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my whole hill about like policing in America. Again, another controversial hill I'm willing to die on. All right, something more upbeat. I don't know if you guys saw over the weekend. Richard Branson went to space. He is
in the race to see how to waste more money while people starve.
This is happy news, man. Like
happy for who?
We can
this
go.
is not happy news. Come on.
You can go.
This is a terrible waste. This is Richard Branson, a billionaire, using $200 million of taxpayer money to get his little company into space for space tourism, not for like space exploration. Just we're gonna have little trips to space and go hang out there. Come on.
I'm on Kev's side, but I got
Kodak. This is like Kodak throwing that $100,000 in the river for no reason.
Exactly.
It's different. It's different. So all right, let's
put it in the
talk
same
about
category.
it. So like, I can't agree with that because like, all right, think about it this way. It's like if you're someone like Bezos or Elon, and you're making money, like, and you're stockpiling money, what else are you doing with it? If it doesn't get used for something that contributes back into the economy, like, what happens to that money? Right? I feel like yes, it's wasteful in a sense, but why do we expect people to immediately throw the money at something that is not relevant for them? I'm not saying it's moral for them to do this space flight, but I am saying it's better than them just storing it in like in their own fortune. And
that's
what's relevant to their lives about Jeff Bezos is an e-commerce magnate. What's relevant about space for him? Like, what does he need to be in space for?
It's like all right, so we'll put it this way. If you again, I this is not a hill I want to die on. I've been saying that all day.
Yeah, you already started. You already started.
But if
your host, man.
If I'm working and I'm making money, like, do you not want to spend it on what you want to spend on? Like, how are you gonna feel if someone comes to you when you get your Tesla and is like, nah, you don't need that Tesla. Like, you should have just got like a Honda, like, or something like that. I'm not saying that
Hondas are expensive, low key.
You're not wrong on that, but I kind of feel as though if you're spending that money on something that goes back into the economy, what is the big deal?
What is he? I guess my problem with it is, and I do think there is something to this going back into the economy. How much it is, because again, this is something that's only going to go to the uber rich. This is not something that I can see extending down to middle class folks, the bulk of society. It's going to be
not yet. Like
that yet is doing a lot of work though, Kev. Come on. All right, but I guess
someone has to support this on this podcast, Marcus.
I just think, look, I have no problem with folks spending the money that they want, but I think what gets me is that these guys are using public funding. When it gets to the part of you're using public funding to kind of fund your your little boondoggles. Again, Richard Branson is a billionaire a few times over. Why are you getting taxpayer money to kind of fuel Virgin Exploration, the Virgin Galactic, whatever the company is called? You're Jeff Bezos. Why are you kind of fighting with Elon Musk to kind of get government contracts and use that to speak, just so that you can explore or go into space for what exactly. All right, I think one of them, either Bezos or Branson, gave this like real speech about how we can go to a world where there's no limits and no boundaries for anyone based on who they are. And it's like, bro, we have issues here on the United States, right here on our planet, in our country. And you're just kind of running away from them. Like maybe if you're really that geeked up about kind of making a difference and on a large scale like that, maybe redirect your largesse to those issues, to world hunger, to poverty, to these things that are like real and happening right here, right now, is my thing. But yeah, go ahead and spend your money. I'm pretty sure Richard Branson doesn't have any issue spending his money on things. Same thing with
Wasn't
Bezos.
he just buying mad islands, I think?
Yeah.
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 Like, again, these guys have no problem finding things to spend money on. It's kind of a real issue, I think, with the pandemic, is where there's all this money and people don't know where to put it, which is why we see rise of things like NFTs. Just people just in sneaker market going crazy. There's just too much money out there, not enough to spend it on. And I think that billionaires just kind of blowing this money on space exploration at a time where it's like, bro, we have things we're trying to get done here. It's just kind of emblematic of that. But
I got a theory.
Yeah.
They know something we don't know.
Yeah, global
They
warming.
probably do.
I feel like they got in a room with someone. They got in a room with someone like Trump, and Trump was like, "Guys, I saw it in the files. I know what's gonna happen." And everyone was like, "Oh shit, we have to get off this planet."
Yeah,
we know about the UFOs coming.
Yeah, this is my theory. It's a wild theory. I think the movie Wall-E was a documentary. That is my theory. I think that there's so much trash. See, Apple's been listening to me. So there's been so much trash on here that we can't deal with. There's also been like global warming that we really haven't tackled at all. That's been the main criticism of the past Biden infrastructure bill. I think that's what they know. Like, there's just no hope here. So just get off the planet. That's my theory. But
yeah, sound like Thanos now.
I shot at Thanos, man. He was right.
Oh wow.
Thanos was like 90% right, bro. His method was like wild, but shit was smart.
All he wanted to do was just like live his life out in like a peaceful little village or whatever, man. He was a nice guy. All right, let's see if there's any other good news we can talk about. There's none. All right, so let's talk about the VP. So our VP, Kamala Harris, she's been highlighted in a political article. So Politico reported that there is dysfunction and poor communication in the VP's office, and it is coming at the top. So they're blaming Kamala Harris for the dysfunction and poor communication that's been throughout her office. So a little bit more details behind that. So for example, like donors who helped donate to Kamala Harris's campaign, they've been having issues like getting in touch with her. For example, Kamala Harris, when she visited the border, that was kind of like a last minute thing. So that was kind of poor communications down through the chain.
Wait.
What's going on?
Because she don't go see donors, they're upset.
What? Yes. Yeah, time out.
That's what you pay for. You pay for the privilege for the access.
Nah,
yes.
what? So you can just buy.
Marcus is right.
Lobby. I hate money.
That's what it's there for.
No, but Marcus is right. Marcus is pretty much making like don't hate the player, hate the game type of thing, right? Like
no,
that's just how the game.
I'm hating all of them. I feel like Citizen United is the thing that destroyed this country. This is destroying this country.
Yeah. No,
no disagreement there.
Yeah, it made things a lot worse. But yeah, part of it, to Ryan's point, is rich donors wanted to get access to the VP. They've been finding communications, like Lisa's even texting her, calling her, and they've been talking about it and criticizing it. There's other legitimate things. For example, her trip to the border a couple weeks ago, that was very last minute. Staff members complained about they were out the loop if she wanted to go to the border or not. I know Republicans have been kind of criticizing her on her immigration policy. She's just the VP, but
leave that woman alone, man.
It all sounds like the things we heard about her campaign before it kind of shuttered. during the last run in 2019. Just with
That's a
poor
deep
communication
dive.
from the top.
Yeah, so Marcus has a really good point. That's a deep dive into this whole segment. It's basically these are very similar to what brought her campaign down when she was running for president through the Democratic primaries. She was supposed to be the
Polling
front
high.
runner. She had like all the backing, all the money. She was supposed to be the front runner, but
Yeah, and Cory Booker, man.
yeah, campaign just fell through. So, so shout out to
Yeah, I think Elizabeth Warren would take another stab at it.
Wow.
I'm
think-
very
I think Elizabeth Warren is the president that America deserves. But
Yes.
don't deserve.
I
That needs,
No,
but
I
does not
agree.
deserve.
She would have been,
I-
yeah, she would have gotten my
Okay.
vote, but yeah, she
Yeah.
just didn't last. She put out that billionaire tax, and they were like, "No fucking way, fam.
Yep.
we can't have you out
They
here."
got scared. Wall Street got scared. Everybody got scared. So
Everybody with money got scared, so
Mhm.
they just
So
kind of killed it.
I guess it's like a conspiracy pod. Maybe this could be like the title of the podcast. But I don't know if you guys noticed, but whenever like Elizabeth Warren like spoke about like, hey, we need universal health care, like, hey, we need this, X, Y, and Z, every single moderator was like, how are you gonna pay for this?
And she
And
said,
it's
I
like
have a-
no other candidate outside of Bernie Sanders, obviously, but like no other candidate.
and I love their
got that
slogan.
question.
I love their slogan.
She actually had
I have a
ideas on how
plan
to
for
pay
that.
for it too. She
I have
had
a
answers
plan
for
for that.
everything,
I have a
Right.
plan for that.
and she
Right, I have
got
a
killed
plan
for it.
that. Right.
I heard that Americans just didn't like that she was that smart.
Honestly, I think it's just a common tactic. Like they did the same thing to Bernie, like with like
Right.
whenever he was in an interview, like they would do the same thing to Bernie on CNN, Fox, like all those
Oh,
channels.
no. CNN definitely took out Bernie's legs from underneath him.
Right.
The DNC, it was like Bernie Sanders. That's the only thing I agreed with Trump with. Like the DNC killed Bernie Sanders' campaign. Like they gave the control to Hillary Clinton while the primary was still happening.
I will say this: the DNC through their campaign art, I think it's called a DCC. Please correct me on that one.
DCCC, yep.
DCCC, right? They were kind of actively making sure that progressive candidates don't receive money, basically. Which my point of view is like we only have two parties, so we should kind of have like a big tent way of looking at things, right? We should have like a very progressive way of looking at things. We should have a very centrist way of looking at things. We should have like the traditional Democrat way of looking at things. We only have two parties, so we kind of need to like kind of open up our mind to like other ideas and other alternatives. So I don't know.
Free thought, not in my party.
Not in my party, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, we're seeing that issue now with playing out with Nina Turner in Ohio, where that whole entire Oregon is kind of falling behind her primary opponent.
Which is like that is the most nuts thing to me because like it seems like Nina Turner, one, the polls say that she has a very clear lead in the primaries, but in two, it's like she's one voice out of 435 people. How scared are you of one voice out of 435 people? That to me is like kind of like shocking. It's like, is this kind of where you want to spend your political capital on? Just making sure like, oh, this Democrat wins over this Democrat, not on like
they're flooding money into her opponents, her opponent's thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just that fear of progressive candidates.
Man. Yep.
It's so much of like that post 2020, like, oh, all these progressive candidates arguing for Black Lives Matter cost us the election. I think that's still
right.
It may have been debunked, but I think they're still kind of playing that up with donors, and they're falling for it.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, that's like the biggest thing. Like if you watch like CNN or anything like that, like traditional Democrats will always say like, oh yeah, it was defund the police that kind of killed us. Actually, defund the police was like one of like many things that Republicans used to kind of stick it to like Democrats during the last like House election. So I don't know. I don't know. Even like now, like I think CNN, for example, when they're talking about like Eric Adams, they're saying, oh, okay, Eric Adams represents the death of the woke Democrat. I don't know, because Buffalo, New York hired a so-called socialist as as like what, their mayor or city council person?
Is their mayor?
Mayor.
Yeah,
As their
just,
mayor.
yeah, just voted in their mayor as Democratic Socialist.
And like Buffalo, New York, like it's a very conservative area, which is pretty shocking that they did that. I don't know. I mean, like, it just seems like they're very quick to kind of denounce like the left and just say, hey, this is the way things are now. And it's like, I don't know. We should be like a big tent party when it comes to certain ideas. And we only have two parties. That's my whole spiel. We only have two parties. All right. So speaking of only two parties, let's talk about Texas, for example. So Texas, the governor of Texas has issued a special session for the state legislature. He wants to push through some pretty far right policies. One of the biggest things is voting rights. So Texas already has one of the nation's strictest voting laws. For example, I'm blanking on her name, but there was a lady, she got out of jail, she volunteered at a polling place, she thought she was good, she wasn't, she voted, and she got 5 years in jail for it. That is Texas, and that was his voting laws before Trump was in office, right? Or before Trump started pushing the big lie. Let me just clarify. So Texas wants to restrict voting rights even more. So 58 out of the 67 state House Democrats have decided to skip town. I decided to leave Texas, leave Austin, and fly to Washington, D.C. Because they are not there, legislation cannot go through. That's what the law is there. And they're hoping, well, one, they could go to jail. They can get arrested at least. I don't know if they're going to go to jail, but they can get arrested. But they're hoping that like this is enough to kind of curtail the push for more restrictive voting laws in Texas. And then President Biden, he made a speech today. We're recording this on a Tuesday. He made a speech in Philadelphia promoting voting rights in Philly. So that's where we're at in Texas.
Didn't they say they was gonna arrest all the Democrats?
Yes, they're
That's
gonna.
what he wants to do.
Yeah, that's what he wants to do. I don't know.
There's a case like that in, I think in the Senate when they had the sergeant of arms dragging back people in the somewhere to go back to get to vote. I forgot where it happened.
Was it Oregon? Because I know Oregon with their Democratic governor had a similar issue where people or the Republicans fled the state to prevent legislation from being passed. And so the governor kind of ordered the state troopers to kind of hunt them down and drag them back to the Senate or House, whatever house they're in order to like just sit in their seats so they can pass legislation. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of scary what's going on in Texas. I know Florida is also with their governor. They've been pushing a lot of like far right laws. It seems like this kind of like this competition who can be the most far right ahead of the 2024 election between some governors. I know South Dakota and Iowa, they sent National Guardsmen down to the border. I don't know why. I don't know why that's not a bigger issue in the news.
That was another billionaire too who like funded that, right? He was like, he basically called up the governor and was like, yeah, you should be on board with this. We'll send the National Guard down and I'll put the money up for it.
Yeah, I think that was like South Dakota, for example.
Yeah, Governor Christie Nolan. I forget the billionaire's name, but again, what are these guys spending the money on?
That's a good point, Mark. That's a good point. What are you spending money on?
Go to space, God.
So they're spending Iowan taxpayer money to go guard the border.
So
at no cost to Texas.
Let me just say this, and I'm really kind of surprised that the media doesn't kind of harp on this. One, the National Guard or the military in general, they're not allowed to enforce law enforcement. That is law enforcement's job, right? That's why we have a border patrol and not the National Guard patrolling the borders. They're pretty much there just to look through binoculars, see people coming across the border, and notify law enforcement that people are crossing. So if you're at a certain portion of the border where there's no activity, you literally took people away from their families, away from their jobs, because they're National Guard, they're part-time soldiers, to sit in a desert to look through binoculars over a federal issue that had nothing to do with your state that doesn't even border Mexico. So,
it's insane to think about it, man.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
It's the taxpayer money, and you're sending 30 to 40. That doesn't even make any impact.
It makes zero impact. I don't get it. This is why we
Yes.
pay federal income taxes so that the Federal Border Patrol can do this, so that ICE can also enforce immigration laws. Not because South Dakota is sending its, I don't know, 100 soldiers, it's a pretty small state, down to the border, which is a pretty large border, to look through their binoculars and notify federal agents of what's going on. It's
Uh,
stupid.
this is why sometimes I'll be like, yo, having a standing army makes no sense because it just breeds stupidity. Like just to have a standing army, like just people just idle. Because if you don't have a standing army, you're not gonna think to just take random soldiers from their family to go guard a border that's already being guarded.
Yeah, I think governors, this is also pretty controversial. I think governors have too much power over National Guards. And I think National Guard, at least from the government aspect, should just only be for like natural disasters or riot control, right? I could be missing a couple of things, but I think whatever issue is going on in your state, that is what the National Guard should be focusing on. It should not be focusing on what's going on in other states. I think the moment National Guard troops cross state lines, that is where the presidential powers should come into play. That is my theory. You know what I mean?
That's a good idea. If you're not operating within your border, I'm basically the end all be all. Like, because if you really think about it, the president is like the avatar. Like, he has to between the spirit world and the real world, physical world. It's kind of like that. Like, he has to know he's like the mid person between state government and federal government.
Right. It's a fantastic analogy.
Like, for example,
Avatar right there.
So for example, like when Obama was president, right? The U.S. Army was conducting, I think it was like war exercises in Texas. That is what your standing army does. It has to train for war. And the Texas governor at the time
said
the National Guard
invading it
to follow the federal army. I'm sorry, but the president can nationalize your National Guard. That's like the biggest waste of money. So
you're basically telling my own troops to spy on me. Like, it makes no sense.
It just doesn't. It's just such like. I guess I'm more upset at the media than anything because it's like, when we say we support our troops, well, what does that actually mean, right? Like, do we support our troops only when they're invading other countries, or should we support our troops when they're physically here in the United States doing stupid shit like going to the border? Like,
it's unconditional support, Kev. Come on, right. You learn this in kindergarten.
You're right, man. I'm sorry.
This is where they start indoctrinating us. Support the troops at all times, no matter what they're doing.
You're right. I apologize. Let me retract my statements. Go team.
Let's go to a re-education.
Go military, man.
Go military. I'm just picturing as like if I'm a kid at a dinner table and my dad's National Guard, he's like, "Hey, I gotta leave you again. I'm not going to Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm going to Texas for nothing."
Your kid gonna ask, "Are we at war with Mexico?"
Are we at war with Mexico? No, we're not at war with Mexico. They're just people coming across the border. Do you have a border patrol? Yeah, we do. Are they doing their job? Yeah. What are you doing? Nothing.
my boss decided to waste my time, basically.
Right.
That's what that is.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I don't know. It's just the stupidest thing ever. But
I feel like the biggest thing though was like, look at the precedence it's setting. Like, look what you can get if you have money. You can get anything. Like, you can buy an army. Like,
you can deploy an army to a border.
Deploy an army.
You can deploy an army.
That's essentially what the National Guard is. You can deploy an army to the border. But I don't know, man. We're not CNN. So what can we do? All right. So we're in the final minutes of the podcast. Let's talk about these two things. The FDA has issued a warning on J&J COVID vaccines as it's tied to a rare neurological disease.
Excuse me. I just want to say, you a wild nigga if you actually showed up and take some J&J vaccine, bro. You a real wild nigga, bro. I don't care what they say to me. Why the fuck does it take one J&J back, one J&J shot, but it takes two for the others. And J already got trust problems. Why are you trusting that shit, man?
It's a good name brand.
Don't trust J, bro. Like, why are you going, bro? It was like 2 years ago. J was putting like cancer and baby powder, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
Ryan, we already have vaccine hesitancy. I think you're just pouring more gasoline to the fire. You know.
Bro, this J shit got stopped and restarted like 19 times already, bro.
It has been. Yeah, this is like the
Yes.
second time.
every weekend they suspend it, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yo, you a wild bull if you pull up and like, yeah, man, let me get that J, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And like when J&J first came out, this is a little bit of a tangent. Some people were kind of worried that like states would push this for like low income areas because this is one shot and you're done, as opposed to like giving one shot and getting those same people to come back for a second shot. So it's just like it's kind of nasty all around. All right. And our last bit of news here for today. So JP Morgan report has showed that Republican efforts to improve the labor markets in their states by cutting off the enhanced unemployment benefits early did not help at all. So if you remember back in the day, we were giving.
What a surprise.
Man, this is the same party whose guy came out and said, stop buying iPhones and your life will get better, man.
I mean, I don't understand the thinking behind it. It's like, hey, let's push people back into shitty work environments. Let's not address the shitty work environments. Let's just push them back into it.
Oh no, because he was working it before. Why are you complaining now, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Why are you developing a freedom of thought?
I have been seeing in the news a lot that a lot of people have been quitting their jobs since their companies have been asking them to come back into the office. More power to them. If I did this, like, for example, JP Morgan came out, the same company that did this report, they had a record year. No, they had a record year in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was home. Why are you telling me I got to go back into the office when we had
they gotta keep the housing market going, bro.
Goldman said the same shit. Yeah. Goldman was like, yeah, we want everybody back in the office, but it's like, again, you just saw how well we did last year. I think they just reported another record quarter, but they're still pushing folks to come back.
Was it Goldman CEO who was still saying that, yo, if you can go to brunch, you can come to work?
I think so, yeah. I think that was David Solomon. Yeah, that's right.
Yo, devil's advocate. Now, I'm not saying people need to go into the office. What I am saying is make an office available for people who want to go in. I recently went into the office and the amount of work I got done was insane compared to what I've been doing at home. Now, I'm not saying
we couldn't be editing this part off.
Is it
advocate to go back into the office, nigga?
Cut Yaw's mic.
I know I'm IT, so I'm remote, so it's okay.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, I think there needs to be the option for people, for those folks that want to go into the office,
like the old folks.
But again, don't force it on us. Make it a choice. I know a lot of people, a lot of companies are invested in, a lot of real estate, for these big offices. But again, just don't force it.
It's one of those things.
I haven't
no reason to now.
I haven't done a crazy hill on this one. I think people don't like their families, and work was the one avenue to get away from
100%. That's 100%.
I have another wild theory. I just think people in leadership and management just hate that they're not able to micromanage you from your computer, your laptop at home than they could at the office. That's why they need you back so bad, because they need to micromanage.
Like,
I'm imagining
if everybody is enjoying work from home except a few ungrateful, then what's the fucking problem? Why we have to go back in the office?
I imagine Jamie Dimon sitting at home being like, what is Cheryl doing?
Well,
oh my gosh.
Like,
I wonder if he's doing what I told him to do right now.
and that same
Why is it taking him
article,
5 minutes longer to send me, send me this email? What the hell's going
right,
on?
right, exactly. I pinged this guy at like 7 o'clock. Where is he? You know, yeah, like Jamie Dimon, I think in that same article was like, yeah, like, commuting to work sucks, but like, get over it. And I was like, this guy has a private jet,
Dude, it takes a helicopter in from his.
I could
Like,
take a
are you kidding me?
helicopter to work.
Take a helicopter in from the Hamptons into JP Morgan's offices. Like,
Probably
get out of here.
and he probably barely go to work. He probably send like proxies to vote for him and shit.
That's
He's probably teleconferencing in for all of his meetings. Like,
right.
get out
That's
of here,
exactly
man.
it. Yeah, he's probably teleconferencing in for a lot of his meetings.
But rich people have the nerve to be commenting on poor people problems. Give the money to fix the problem and shut up.
I just don't get it. I understand, like, if you're like a
bro, you know how much time I save and how happy I have been since I've been quarantining, bro, for work commute.
No idea.
Takes me an hour to get to work and an hour to come back from work.
Yep.
So that's 2 hours where the commuting after leaving plus like 10 hours of work. So 10 plus 2, that's 12 hours. By the time I'm home, I'm done, bro. Like, I don't want to do anything.
Well, I mean, on top of that, like, since things are opening back up, you can like actually vacation more and do more things, like travel more. You just have so much more flexibility.
Save more money because like we live in New York City, like to buy lunch or a breakfast. Because if you have to leave your house early, you can't leave your house at any time. So you have to leave your house early without making like breakfast and stuff. You have to buy like in New York, a breakfast costs you like $10 and you're not getting lunch for less than $20. So like imagine what money. Come on, man. Like when you add up the numbers, like it's like, yo, why are we going back? But to please people who want to micromanage us. That's the only reason.
That's the only reason.
That's my managers though. She's a queen.
Right.
She's holding it down.
But yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm very happy working from home. If you want me to come in like once or twice a week, sure,
fine.
Like, I would do that. But I ain't doing no 5 days a week, like coming into the office, wear and tear on my car, all these additional expenses when I could do the exact same thing at home.
All right. I gotta ask then, because like I want to ask about Florida, Kev. Right?
What's going on?
Did it not feel like one long work day every day, like peak pandemic? When like
no.
Not for me. All right. No. So the answer is yes, because I took less breaks at home than I did at my office because I hate the cubicle. So I just walked around a lot more. But to Ryan's point, my commute into work was like, well, one, Orlando doesn't really have like a highway that's like around the city, right? Most cities have like a 275 or 295 or whatever, which is like a highway around the city, and it's completely free. Orlando doesn't have that. That is just like you have to pay to go on a turnpike to go around the city. So my commute
will get you.
Was like from my house was one is an hour with traffic, and I had to pay the turnpike to go to work every single day. And of course, the wear and tear on the vehicle, like there's a lot of construction on the highways and stuff. I had to recently change my windshield because a rock hit it. So it's like, why am I doing this? And it's like, okay, I had to show up to work from like 8 to 9, 8 to 5, whatever. But in reality, it's like I'm spending like from 6 to like 7 away from my home, because the commute's so long, traffic's so bad. It's like, why? I would rather take the nonstop work at home than to do that.
Then not to go through that, yeah.
Right. I would just rather do it. Like, I'm sorry.
The worst thing is on the train and then on the MTA, and then they said there's a signal problem because you're stuck there for the next half hour to an hour, so you're late to work, and that happened at least once or twice a month.
Right, and like some jobs, like you have to use your vacation time depending how late you show up into the office.
Wow.
No, I'm not doing that. Like I have no control over that. Like driving to work, again, on the turnpike, there's always an accident. You don't know when there's going to be an accident. I can use Waze or Google Maps, but like there's always going to be an accident. I'm sitting in traffic. The next exit is the next 2 miles up. What can I do? I'm showing up late to work. No, man, I'm working from home, dude. Sorry.
We
But
got to prop up the real estate market, man.
that's the biggest thing. New York took a pretty big hit because not a lot of people were renting and the commercial space. Not a lot of people.
I mean, I just saw an ad today for New York. So I was saying they're having affordable housing in Brooklyn for I think $2,400 a month. So it sounds like New York's going to be
New
just
York
fine
back, baby.
getting that money back.
New York back, baby.
$2,400 a month is affordable.
Yeah,
$2,400 a month apparently. It's
you have to apply for it, and then
you have to make, I think, $81,000. I think, it's like 80 grand in order to just be eligible for the opening price at 2,400.
That's nuts.
For studio.
That's nuts.
So New York's gonna be fine. Everyone's flooding back in to pay these exorbitant
back,
rates.
baby, man.
Yeah, New York's back.
They'll get the real estate money back. I'm not worried about those folks.
Yeah, no, they had one small blimp, like a very tiny blimp, like maybe a couple months where people didn't renew their leases, so they can live in like I don't know, Montana, Hawaii, whatever. But it was a very small blimp.
My process. Like it's crazy because it's crazy to see the change. Remember last year when I was applying for apartments, I got one like in like a couple of days. My coworker is trying to move back to New York City, and he's been looking for a new apartment for like months now and can't find one.
That's crazy. Yeah, I had to secure this deal. I had the COVID rate for mine, but as soon as like things kind of got back to normal, the cost for the apartment like shot up like a lot. So pretty happy I kind of locked it down under COVID rates. All right. But enough about our boring lives. That is all we have on this podcast today. If you like it, please subscribe to it. Please like it. Please share it with a friend or family member. Please share it on your social media, so like Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on our DMs. This is episode 34, and we're out, guys.
Deuces.